Season 1, Chapter 6. Listen with your ears, react with your face.
Welcome to Starting Now, a Barry podcast, presented by Cinemasins.
Hello, everybody. This is Starting Now, the Barry podcast with Chris Atkinson, Barrett Share,
Hey!
and Mike Hester.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah.
That's that Mike enthusiasm.
That's right. Chapter 6 of Barry. Barry! So where are we at now in the episode? We're at the beginning of this. Barry and Taylor and Fuches are all trying to figure out what they're going to do at this airfield when the Bolivians show up. And once again, see, Taylor's a great character. I am glad that it's not like Hank, right? We want to see Hank all the time. We at least want to see him at once an episode.
Yes.
Taylor is one of those perfect, like 2 or 3 episode arc characters.
Yeah.
And you can tell just by the way this guy's talking, there's no way he can last.
No.
And so they're out in the airfield and they're planning this whole thing about when the airplane comes down and everything. Taylor over the radio is like, hey man, we should just shoot this out of the air.
Yeah.
Be drinking cervezas by the time it crashes.
This would be a great place for a hot tub. Put it right here.
Yeah, it's like,
Get some chicks.
yeah, get some chicks, fuck them. And he's like he's up there just
Fuches is just rolling his eyes like, oh my God. And Barry's just trying to make this happen. Those are great ideas. Good constructive ideas there.
Barry is trying to do what the acting class does with his hitman stuff. Let's be positive about this. I'm convinced that his teaching style has become Cousineau a little bit.
Yeah.
Like Cousineau is rough around the edges, but he's obviously putting up with a lot of bad stuff. And he's trying, but he's also not going too far. But yeah, Barry's trying to be very nice about this. Oh man, that's a great suggestion you got there, Taylor. Man, just keep them coming. I think it'll be better if I just am up on the hill and the plane lands and Bolivian leader comes out and I just shoot him. Okay.
He's like trying to be a matchmaker here. He wants Fuches and Taylor to happen, and it's just not gonna happen. But he doesn't know it yet.
Well, yeah. Does he not know it yet?
He doesn't know that he wants to make it work. He's trying to force to make this work because he wants out.
Do you think he's already at this point at the airfield, because it does become clear later on when they're at Taylor's place? Do you think by this moment he recognizes this as a way out? Like he's already taking steps to make this a succession plan?
I think from the moment he didn't kill him, when he had the gun on him,
that's interesting.
And he changed at that point, he's like, okay, I can't kill him. What do I do next? It's like, well, I pass him off to Taylor.
This is my
out.
out.
And this is my out. Oh, okay. This is a great idea. But he doesn't realize what a terrible, terrible idea that is. He's not aware. He's awkward. He doesn't have a lot of life experiences to know that that's awful. That's just a dumb idea, and he's going to try to make this work.
Well, I don't even know if it's a dumb idea. I mean, he is trying to make it work. He just doesn't know that it's a dumb idea yet.
Yeah.
Just because Taylor's such a wrecking ball. But like that decision happens completely off screen, right? Like we don't know that he's made this decision until he explicates it later on. And I just never really thought of it that way. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, so he's looking for any reason that Taylor is perfect for this job at this point.
And he is trying to take all the idiotic things he says and just kind of wipe them away. It's like
he wants to shoot the plane out of the sky.
Out of the sky. This is a terrible place for a hot tub.
Yeah. He's like, a hot tub! And true to Taylor's character, he doesn't hear hot tub in an angry voice. He just hears hot tub. And he says, hey, did Fuches say something about hot tub? And then we get to see him more in his just like iddish character when they go to that apartment and he's just watching porn in front of Barry, and he's just like, look at what this dude does. Look at this dude. What this chick does to this dude's asshole.
Oh my god!
It's a great. This is the scene for me that it really sold me on Taylor, because I just found him annoying and wanted him out of the show. But then we get to, you know, they're talking about everything, and then they start to talk about Fuches, and this is where, you know, Barry's saying, you know, maybe you could work for him, and Taylor just shows how smart he is in this situation. Is like, nah, that guy's fucking you. You should kill him.
50-50.
You should kill Fuches.
Yeah, this is actually the first time that we hear that it's an even split.
Yeah,
and that's absurd.
Yeah, it is absurd.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at this like as Fuches is an agent, like I believe that's how we're supposed to sort of start taking a lot of this, is that, you know, Barry is the main performer and Fuches is the agent. You know, that, you know, an agent takes, I think, 15%, something like that.
Yeah, that sounds about right, and that's with sports and with acting and all of that. So yeah, it's 15, 20, something like that.
Somewhere around there, depending on, I guess, how good you are. But yeah, 50% is absurd. Although I think Barry also isn't very much driven by money at all.
Definitely not.
So,
No.
like, I don't think he cares about that aspect of it, and that's why he's never considered how bad of a deal that is.
Yeah, and that's an interesting wrinkle into it, because everybody does do this to get into the money. But as we saw in the first episode, you know, they're living, you know, paycheck to paycheck, basically, staying in bad hotels, taking cheap travel and stuff like that. It's not like, you know, with the amount of money that they're getting, it's not like they're living the high life. And I guess he's cool with that. He doesn't care. The only time when we see him spend money is when he's trying to impress Sally.
There is a scene right before that. What episode is that? The third or the fourth one, where they actually, Fuches, he gives the money. He gives Barry some money. It's a significant amount of money. And then he takes the rest and he puts it into the kitty or whatever he calls it.
The piggy bank, I think.
The piggy bank. And there's like a ton of money in there.
Yeah.
There's a ton of money. And you see it as the viewer, and Fuches knows it because he's doing it. Barry, I don't even think, it doesn't even cross his mind that I'm getting this amount or getting this amount. He
We're
doesn't
not
even
told
think
any-
about the amount he gets.
Yeah, we're not told any of the dollar amounts until like the end of this episode where they're counting the money. We're not told how much per hit that he gets. You know, he mentioned the small time crooks that they were taking out before, but we don't know. We have no like value of how much all this stuff is. We don't even know what denominations there are in that suitcase. Yeah. So it's interesting when it does finally say like this is how much that is, where you have to retroactively kind of like assign values to all that stuff.
Yeah. And so you have, during this episode, you have Fuches saying you got to kill Taylor, Taylor saying you got to kill Fuches. It's sort of this back and forth there. At some point, Barry decides, I'm just going to go this alone, man. And again, Taylor completely glassy-eyed during this whole thing. You know, he calls him and he says, you know, I think I'm just going to go this solo. And he's like, okay.
Yeah.
And it's so, yeah, I mean, all the stuff that I just want you to know that the suggestions you came up with, man, those were great. He was going to tell him off, but he just can't anymore. He just, he's not capable of it.
Well, and I think he still hopes that he can make it work with Fuches in there. And I think it's really interesting earlier when they're watching the porn that he says, I wrote this down. He says, take the money, kill Fuches, live your dreams. So his idea is to get away from Fuches, and Taylor just tells him exactly how to do it, but he can't do it. He can't kill Fuches. That idea has never really entered his head. I wonder, as we go along and get into season 2, and who knows if it'll be season 3, if that's the sort of thing that starts to come about. But this is the first time he's even thought, I think, he's even thought about leaving Fuches or killing Fuches.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
I agree.
But he's backed himself into a corner on that decision, right? He doesn't like killing anymore at all. So the idea of actually going out and killing him is also distasteful to him. So he's sort of backed himself into a corner with that decision. It's, again, if that was somebody had brought that up 2 years ago, he would have done it probably.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not, because I think this acting class thing.
He wouldn't have killed Fuches, I don't think. I don't think he realized until the acting class thing that there's a different way he can
there's
live
also
life.
he only kills bad guys. That's what they were saying in the earlier the episode before this, is that, you know, we don't take out Marines. We don't we kill bad guys for a reason. He's trying to have a moral justification for what he does, you know, which I guess is kind of the same thing as Grosse Point Blank.
Fuchs says that in the first episode. Another bad guy's dead.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. So but then so you're saying they go later on at the hotel. She's telling him no, but Taylor's going to just do it anyway. So I thought,
that at that point where he says okay on the phone, you get the sense that it shit's going down, right? He's not taking no for an answer.
Well, yeah, I don't think he's even listening to what he's saying.
He needs the action.
Yeah,
he needs it.
He very much does it. He does need it, and then they, this is at the very end of the episode, but he comes riding along with dude from the party that they brought and Chris in the back seat, and you're like, what the hell is Chris doing?
Yep.
This is and Barry really knows that things have gone down at that point. Like, he is really scared about this now because Chris has got a family and everything, and Chris is just dumb as the other two guys.
Yep.
In a very different way. They get in the car and the guy has the gun and he just fires it at his feet.
Bushmaster.
Whoa! I know we're skipping around, but that bothers me. Like, why the fuck is he doing that? What does he bring to the table? He knows he's with these heavily armed dudes in the front, right? Who are all jacked out in their military clothes and all that stuff, clips everywhere, guns everywhere. He doesn't even have a gun on him.
Yeah.
I mean, what is he expecting to happen? Like, this just seems like a guy that's so careful to where he's saying, like, don't tell my wife that I've been hanging out with Taylor and that kind of thing, would agree to go along with this in the first place.
Yeah, this is a real weird spot for me in this. It's like it doesn't make much sense in this entire what they've been presenting to us that he's in the back seat of that car.
Yeah.
Yes, he's dumb and he's been hanging out with these guys, but you just imagine Taylor pitching this, hey, yeah, we'll go in there. Fuck yeah, we'll kill the Bolivians and blah, blah, blah. And that's appealing to Chris in any way?
That did not make sense. Now, I do understand the whole where he opens the door and he's like, get out of the car. Because at that point, he's committed. He doesn't want to lose face, in front of his guys. But getting him in that car bothered me.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree. And then when the gunshot is fired, that didn't, like, nobody set off any alarms or anything. It's hilarious. But then Barry knows he needs to get Chris out, but he doesn't have the strength of will to actually force it to happen. Yeah. Because he knows that bad shit's going to happen. He says, get out of the car. And Chris is like, no, man, I got your back. And he goes with it. And it's just another case where he is weak. He's giving up his agency. He's giving up himself to Taylor, who is driving this, and he can't just tell Chris to get out of the car. He can't do it. He can't force him out because he needs to force him out. I don't think he cares, and I certainly as a viewer don't care if the two guys in the front seat get killed, but we all care a lot about Chris, and we've been led to that. And so
it's a weird choice.
I imagine if you're plotting out this season and you're the showrunners and everything, you're like, okay, at some point Moss is going to be at the end of this case and she's going to hit a dead end. How can we possibly make it? And obviously we're not spoiling what happens later, but the fact that these guys are involved lead to more revelations for Moss later on, and it's almost like this. We needed to have him in the backseat of the car for this very reason, or else it doesn't work.
It was a means to an end.
Yeah,
it's interesting because we mentioned some of the Bond mots, like the fly some chicks up here and fuck them, and like look how much this guy jizzes and everything. This was written by Emily Heller, who's a stand-up comedian. And I thought the script for this one was fantastic. And this is another Hiro Murai directed episode. And so this, I think, keeps the momentum. That decision aside, with Chris in the back seat, I think this keeps up the momentum perfectly from the last episode.
Yeah, it definitely drives everything forward. So do we want to go into the last scene now, or do we want to talk about some other things?
Let's go through some other stuff.
I think the second scene... I think it's the second scene of the episode is when NoHo Hank and Gordon and all that are walking into the stash house for the first time as they own it. which is just some of the best comedy that this show has had. Just he's walking in, and I forget what exactly he says. Oh, we look over here. We can take down this wall over here. We can clean up all the blood. Maybe put a ping pong table over here.
Yeah.
It's just and then Goran does the whole on his knees where he's making fun of the Bolivians. That's some great physical comedy there, Gore.
He's like, but I paid for it. I pay for it because he's like hard to get up afterwards. And then Vasha walks in, and he's like, Barry, I've been following him around, and he has been doing no hits. Look at here. He's driving around. He has sex with this nun, and both Hank and Goran are like, Hank's like, hey, you are really creepy, man. And what are you following him around for? We don't want a connection with him. Being photographer is connection.
Yep.
But he killed my brother. Oh, you got to get over that.
That's what's funny is that like you see those earlier episodes where he's stalking him, where he's got the camera, and then it gets progressively goofier, where he's got the bigger camera, and this is how it pays off, basically, as a joke, and that's it.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, it leads to a couple of actions later on, but like it's not anything like conspiratorial. Now the Chechens are after him. It's one dude. They can't let this go,
and so they tell him, forget about Barry, but then he's like, okay, well, I'll just go after Sally then. Which is another kind of an out for the show as well, because he's not really been involved in the main plot at all, and now he's going to make this decision that is really going to start propelling this investigation a lot more.
We got to talk about Janice and Gene, right?
Yeah,
because man, okay, you got different stages to this relationship. You've got that wonderful opening line of like, you check all the boxes, and what the fuck are you?
Yeah.
And then you've got the restaurant scene where it starts to see like her warm up and really get like aroused by this dude. Then you get where she comes in and tackles him at the end of the last episode. And now you get like a relationship, like a very sincere, non over dramatic like relationship discussion about like, we're in rarefied air right now. Like we're actually trying to get to a place in reality, not just fucking and stuff like that, that people don't usually get to. And I've thought that was very touching, very emotional. It comes after that wonderfully comedic scene where he's trying to wake her up by blowing on
in her face. Which is so weird and so Cousineau, though.
Yeah.
So perfect for him.
But I love this. I love that they took this as being her tackling him and saying, I want you, I'm going to get what I want, that kind of thing, to where it's an honest relationship, and I think that's a surprise for me that they took that in that direction.
And so that leads to a whole bunch of stuff here because she's officially ready to take down the acting class pictures on the big crime board and everything, much to the pleasure of all the other people in the department. They even give her a standing ovation because of it, and she's happy because hey, I can forget about the acting class. I can even possibly date Gene now and not worry about it because they're all cleared and everything.
Do you think she wants to continue that relationship?
The smile on her face.
Oh yeah.
While she's taking those down makes me think that's what
she's made that decision.
Yeah, that's the look. They very in particular show the perspective from the board as she's taking those things down.
The conversation they had after he woke her up, and she said, "I don't think this needs to continue anymore," and Gene was talking about how this investigation is affecting their relationship and how she is pushing him away, she thinks, and that he thinks that she wants to push him away just because she doesn't want a relationship, and she's using the investigation as an excuse. So she takes care of that and goes and walks in and takes all these down. I think in her heart of hearts, she knows. She wants this to be a relationship. She knows that there is still some connection with this acting troupe with the murder. But that is such a small voice inside of her that she's like, I'm going to take this down, even though her gut tells her not to. Everything else has been pointing to take it down. All of her teammates, all of her coworkers wanted to take it down. So I'm going to go take it down, and then I can have a relationship with Gene.
I got you. Nice,
Yeah.
nice. I didn't know if she had really, if that was the primary motivation, because I think they leave it a little bit up to interpretation of like, maybe this means if I sever this connection, maybe this means that I also sever my personal connection.
Oh, it could very well be that.
But
as well.
I like you guys'
I
version.
just think the way the order of the events occur and the way they've shot her in the scene, it pretty much leads to and she's still going to have to kind of, even though she's taken this down, she still has to kind of sneak around on this.
Yeah.
Because it's still not appropriate.
Oh, she does. Okay, she's going. You're absolutely right. There is no room for debate because she goes to the acting, the theater, totally in order to see him.
To see him.
So you're absolutely right.
And basically,
and it stumbles onto this whole thing
to say that she. No, it's done, and she's ruled them all out, and now we can have a relationship.
Yeah, because she goes in there happy. She's like, "Oh, do you know where Mr. Kuzno is?"
Well, unfortunately,
exactly.
Vasha
runs into Vasha and hears the accent, and puts some things together.
But leading before that is that Taylor puts all that money, $26,000, into Barry's bag, and even takes out. This is an important little, well, not an important, but a funny little aside. He takes out that, say your lines, hit your mark.
It actually is important when we get a little bit later.
Yeah,
and he takes that out and he puts the money in there.
Yeah,
and then Barry sees it. He freaks out.
Barry's in class before he notices it, and he's like, "Oh shit!" And then he goes into the bathroom and has to put the money up into the ceiling. And of course, they never leave it at that. There's somebody, like, I think it's Nick.
It's Jermaine.
It's Jermaine.
Jermaine comes in. Hey man, I saw you running out of there real fast. I need to talk. Do you have IBS? I have IBS. I want to tell you my story.
And so he hides that money and everything, and then Vasha, who's still on this mission to do something about this whole, like, his brother got killed and everything. He's following Sally around.
Just walking around with the knife out.
Yeah,
that kind of bothered me.
He's in the theater. He's performing on stage. He goes in. He goes
karaoke or whatever.
Yeah. He goes into the that projector room and he's reading some book about audition camera or something like that. And then he starts walking out and Moss just happens to be there and she's like, "Excuse me, are you one of Kuzno's students?" And he's like, very small English and everything." He's like, "Oh, that accent. Is that Russian?" And then it leads to that shootout and everything. Meanwhile, Sally, who was the target of all this, is playing Taylor Swift.
This is my fight song.
Or whatever it is, Katy Perry.
Take back my life.
Who is it?
Rebecca. No, what is it?
I forget the name. Yeah. But it's the fight song, and it's hilarious, and it's so loud she doesn't hear anything.
Rachel Platten.
Yes.
Oh yeah, Rachel Platten. And is playing that song in the car while all that's going on, and it leads to this big shootout. Moss it's an interesting scene. She's a trained cop, but I don't think she's ever dealt with anything like this before. Guys shooting a machine gun at her, and
she's smart enough to know that when he stopped firing, it has to reload. Now is when I run in.
Yeah.
So, and
another perfectly shot action sequence. Yeah. And I guess it's probably the Hero Morai method.
They very specifically in that After Barry episode showed that scene.
It's so good.
Yeah. So that's and I love the way she ends up getting him too. She shoots around the van, and then you can see like it hits inside the van, and there's like a definite like you can definitely see the one part where it got him. It's just a great. Again, if this is somebody else directing this, how many cuts are in that scene? Yep. And this is just all one little shot, and then she goes over, and he's pretty much mortally wounded, but enough to like try to shoot her again, and she blasts him at that point.
And then right after that is when obviously all the other cops show up and all that, and we get some really poignant scenes here. The first one where she has to tell off Kuzno, and it has to be Mr. Kuzno again, and you have to leave. You have to leave. What happened? You have to leave. So this is her not only saying professionally you have to leave, but like personally, you have to go. And then what's the guy's name who she works with? I always forget. Loach. That scene was great.
Yeah,
that's really his only. That character's a joke. It really has been. It's the closest thing to a one-dimensional joke that we've had in this entire series. But I'm glad he does have a moment there where he knows what's been going on. Why is she back here if you already took all that stuff down? And he gets a little chance to step out of that joke role.
Yeah, it's just, and gosh, her acting's great. He says, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. And he says, well, it's over now. Yeah, because he understands. He understands love. He understands how it messes with you. In this line of work, it just doesn't work well. And
yeah, that's something that they bring up at the very first episode.
With his divorce.
Yeah, and it's like he's a detective and she's a real person or something like that.
Exactly.
It also shows, by the way, I keep on looking for parallels between the acting class and the hitman life and all that. It shows how hard it is to act outside of an acting class. What you're supposed, there's a point, like in the last episode where she almost calls him Gene and has to correct it. There's this one where she's pretending like he's like Kusuno is just some other just the acting teacher at this school and everything, but anybody who looks at it, and Loach obviously is seeing this from afar, knows that there's way more going on here than just a detective telling. And she comes back and says, "Fucking acting coach," and he's like, and that's when he goes into that whole you made a big deal about taking those names down off the board and everything. It's how hard it is to fool other people in no matter how hard you try a lot of times.
Around that scene, does it bother you how easily she found the money?
I assume that they jumped several hours ahead.
Well, they did. I'm not sure if it was her that found it too. They had that whole crew come in at that point, and I believe it's a small enough place that they could have just gone in and looked under all the seats and went into the bathrooms and there's a little ceiling tile here and all that. I think that's standard. If there's a crime that has been committed, that they're going to ransack a place like that.
It's a quick cut within the episode, though.
It really is.
We've got this great parallel storyline of the acting troupe, because we go back to the same Macbeth scene. Now Sally's playing Lady Macbeth with no explanation, by the way, about this. Like one of the people in the troupe are like, I thought Natalie was playing her, but she's just happening to play it. And you can see how different it is. But then you have Barry coming in with this same. Do you mark that? Actually, I think it's delayed on this.
Well,
one.
He's not. And it's funny. He claims he's listening because he knows to say his line or whatever later, but he's definitely not listening.
Right.
Not.
And so she keeps on doing this spot, and she even looks out into the audience and is he going to say the line or not? And and he says, "Did you mark that?" And Kusuno is like, "Hold on," and he's like, "Barry, you're just was it easier just yelling the line or whatever?" And he's like, "Everybody, what is this scene about?" And then, we have the great things like it's about guilt and everything. She's sleepwalking and everything. So, all right, so she's sleepwalking. How would you talk to somebody who's sleepwalking?
Not yelling at them.
Yeah. And then he's like, so softer? And he goes, this is not about volume.
That's where the whole title of the episode, the listen with your ears, react with your face thing, is he does this listening exercises. We've talked about how silly a lot of these acting exercises are, thespianism and stuff like that. But this one is maybe the truest example of what we've seen, where he comes up, he's you are not listening, and he can't get that through his skull until finally he has to say this phrase, "I love you," to Sally. And I don't know if it's inadvertent from Kusuno that he gives him this particular phrase, or if it's a common thing for this episode or whatever. But obviously it sets it up as unlocking his potential, because that's the only thing that he wants to say to Sally, and to hear it back, even though it's sloughed off on her side. It's such a great acting scene. It's such a great development scene. And it works perfectly within the context of this troupe. You know what I mean?
I feel like you could honestly take all the acting classes in this series, put them together and get like a decent acting class out of it.
Gene is a decent teacher, which I didn't grasp with like when I seen the early episodes. At this point I start to see, okay, he's able to give you some of the basics and do a good job and to get that.
He's a classic those who can't do teach type of person, right?
I think so, yeah.
Even though his teaching has its other idiosyncrasies to it. He is in this for whatever the money is. But I think he enjoys doing it, or else he wouldn't do this, I don't think. But like we've said before, he's really tolerating a lot of bad acting.
No kidding, man.
Oh, absolutely.
Like everybody is awful in there, and I think he knows who he can reach and who he can't. And for some reason, Barry, even though he's the worst actor in that whole group, hard to say, but he is.
Yeah.
He's found something in Barry that he's able to like connect to, and with Sally. Everybody else is like just doing their own thing,
and he just rolls his eyes.
He just feels like there's nothing he can do about it at this point. Like when Natalie's doing that Lady Macbeth thing, he's just like, wow, and everybody's like takes the cue to clap and everything, and they're just all getting. They don't have any chance, but he sees something in these two. That's probably what makes his job worth it to have two actors like that.
He has seen sometimes in earlier episodes where Barry wasn't acting, but he thought he was acting, and so he has in his head that he can get there, and he thinks he can get him there. And in the scene a little bit, even though it again is Barry not really acting, he's able to get something out of him with the "I love yous" and "I love you." I love you.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Oh,
and
definitely.
That is cool, and that is Barry coming to the realization that he loves her and she does not at all. And I think he has a thick skull, and it takes this scene.
Oh, absolutely.
There.
This is where I mentioned last episode that he's growing as a person.
Yes,
as he's growing as an actor, which is not the right thing to do, right? Like you have to establish a person before you become an artifice, right?
Yeah.
But he's using the artifice to actually inform a person,
yes,
which is an interesting play on that, and it's something that this type of show can do.
That's that's what makes everything about when Barry is a good actor. It's an interesting thing because every time he's a good actor on stage, it's because he is basing it on something he knows is real and everything. Whenever it's something he doesn't have any clue about, he's the worst. He has the worst affect. He doesn't have any kind of like real, chops at all. But every time it's time to get real, he's awesome at it. So in a fake setting, he's great. But like you see out there in the real world and everything, and in a real setting, he's, like some people are horrible actors and sometimes they're great actors in real settings. There's a lot of like added context to whether the situation is fake or the situation is real.
Yeah.
Where they're getting good acting and when they're getting bad acting.
It's also interesting that this is probably the episode that has Barry in it the least, right? Because it's got so much focus on Janice and Gene. It's got so much focus on like the plot and all that stuff, and of Sally and all that. But Barry comes in, at the very last scene, and I guess we can talk about what happens at the airstrip now, right?
But before we,
there's one more thing about Sally, I think.
Which one are you talking about when she goes in to try to get Macbeth?
So she tries.
Oh, that's right.
She tries to get Macbeth, and she tries to get this big Act 5, Scene 5 thing, which is a big deal. And she's learning something now because Cousineau is like, you're not. I know you're the best actor in here. And she says that. She's like, nobody in here can match me. So she keeps thinking that the people that she's acting with have to match her in order for her to shine and everything. But he's like, you're not giving at all. That when you go out and audition, you're not playing big, huge monologues or anything, or, you're going out there and you're acting with other people. So yes, while you might be able to do this thing and be great at it, it's not what you're going to be doing all the time and everything. And there's even a point where he's like, well, Barry will play, what's the
Satan or
Seaton.
Satan.
Yes.
Yeah. Where she has to do it. And when I first saw that, I thought, boy, that's just to push forward the plot. But later on, I started to think that, what you were talking about earlier is that Gene really does see something in Barry, and she really wants him to be a part of this. And I see his thinking more the more I think about it, why that would actually make sense to have Barry in there for that one line.
Yeah.
So.
And she's like, has this look on her face, and he goes, "Come on, it's one line. I think you'll be able to eat around that." Yeah. So yes,
but turns out Gene's smart. That's actually worthwhile to have Barry in there, and she needs to have that other person. So I love it.
It's funny to me how much import is put into this random theater and their Shakespeare showcase in like some corner of Los Angeles. Like, this is the most important thing in the world. So much where he's like, I can't let you do that. It's reckless and that kind of thing. She leaves finally after he gives her permission. He does the fucking Three Stooges thing on his face. Like, this is the craziest decision he's ever made. Where like, if you step back like 2 feet, you're like, what are they doing? Who's going to go to this fucking festival in the first place?
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up one more thing before we get to the last one. The daydream that he has earlier on.
Oh, yeah.
That I have to bring up, even though it's all out of line. I think it's after Taylor tells him he can kill Fuches. And he has that future daydream where, his son, Denzel, gives him a picture of him and Fuches and says, "Hey, who is that?" And he says, I don't know who that is. And he's sitting there, and behind him are like 3 Oscars.
Yeah.
Like some other award, I don't know, Golden Globes or something. And he's still in that crazy daydream world that I think kind of goes away after the "I love you" scene later on. So
yeah.
I don't know if it does.
It does eventually go away because I don't think they've done it at all in season 2.
Yeah, I think after he has the "I love you" scene, that goes away.
But
and then of course at the end of it, his kids disappear.
Yeah, they've transported, and there's like a breeze or something.
Like the house shakes slightly.
Yeah.
I had to put that in because I just love that scene.
That's fantastic.
All right, so we're in the car and we're driving.
Yeah, they're going. Taylor driving this Jeep into the airstrip, and Barry notices the plane has already landed. Doesn't matter to Taylor; he's already 100% in.
Bull rush, motherfucker.
Taylor is saying he's in there, and he's talking about the book because he took out the book, and he's like, "So the book says, it really spoken to me. It says to make the unsafe choice."
Yeah.
I think that really fuels his decision right here.
Yeah.
To just ride in. Guy's a lunatic.
And I love how that scene's shot too, because you hear and then you don't see
Pantera. Yeah. Cowboys from Hell.
You don't see like bullet holes coming to the Jeep right away. It's and then it's like that. And that's just to show you how far away they are in that airfield. It's great. It's another I think Hiro Murai special there.
Where the camera is at the back, and you don't really know what's happened, and they cut what a fantastic cliffhanger. Because I remember watching that. Really, I had no idea. I figured the guys in the front were killed, but you're not even sure about that. And
then you're like, even if Barry survives the whatever happens after that, how does he get out of it?
Yeah, exactly. It's another huge thing. And then it cuts, it goes to credits, no music at all, and you're just kind of sitting there stunned. Love it. So and it leaves you so many ideas what could happen in episode 7.
Yeah, this 2-episode stretch, I've told you how much I love Hiro Murai, but like this is really the meat of the season. I mean, there's topping at the end for sure, and then there's plot advancement after this, but this is really just like where the series went into a different stratosphere for me.
Yeah. All right.
Did you? It took me till this episode to really like Taylor as a person in the show.
Yeah.
Do you guys agree with that?
Whole
the episode 4, he just pissed me off. I didn't really like him. Episode 5 is all right, but he was kind of this annoying character. And this one, he showed some of the depth of his character.
Yeah.
And I just love that he knew exactly that he needed to that Barry's relationship with Fuches. He just saw right through it because he understands that. He understood that mentality right away when nobody else is really seeing it. Certainly not Barry.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm glad that his character is only a couple episodes. Like, I don't think we could have dealt with that, like, through a whole season or anything. Maybe they could have found a way, but then you start adding layers to a character like that where it's like, you know, we find out what he really wants and needs in this life and everything. I don't like that generally. I like the idea of this guy just being what he is.
I was relieved to have a character death, you know, because he had served his purpose. I enjoyed it, but yes, he was ready to go.
Yeah. All right, well, that'll do it for episode 6. We have a couple of social media outlets that you want to come to and comment on this episode.
Yeah, go to Twitter and go to @NowStarting. Okay, do not go to @StartingNow. Now, it's a perfectly fine account. They just haven't tweeted since 2013, and apparently they had a breakup and stuff like that. So just go to
What? Were they a band?
No, it was a person. Like a person that
did the person break up with himself?
So go to @NowStarting on Twitter, and you can interact with Mike. Go to our SoundCloud page and interact with us there. Give us your questions, your comments, what you thought about this episode. Good stuff.
Yeah, that'll do it for episode 6. It's Chris Atkinson, Barrett Scher, and Mike Hester. We'll see you next time.